Tony, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just one thing we've got to be careful of here is that looking at things in isolation, okay, and part of this process has been talking about the whole lot as a cycle. So in terms of the accounting side of it, if you feed urea to the animal and therefore decrease the methane emission from the animal, that's a good thing, but you've also got some fairly significant greenhouse gas emissions involved in the production of urea in the first place. Okay, so you've got to be careful we don't take one step forward and two steps back. So at that level, you've got to remember that the production of urea is a fossil fuel intensive, greenhouse gas intensive, energy intensive process. Then you're freighting it out here. So we've got all this turning up in the bag of urea to reduce the net position by that. And that's probably one of the questions that when you look at the whole thing, look at that piece of the picture can look really nice. My comparison with that is people who say, don't have meat-free Friday, don't eat meat on the Friday and you'll save all this greenhouse gas emissions. That's fantastic, it's just what do you eat on the Friday? Instead, you don't save all the greenhouse gas emissions, you save whatever the net difference is between what the meat would have produced and what else you're eating. Okay, so you've got to make sure you're actually dealing with the right number, and that's the whole accounting side of it. That's just, so it might work, it's whether or not the total package actually ends up with the right result.
Thanks, Tony. Sally?
Hi, Sally Cripps. I've been very quiet all day. Do you mind if I ask a couple of questions?
No.
Firstly, Tony, is there any animal like a kangaroo in the Serengeti? I think what you're saying makes really good scientific sense, but none of us can work out how to stop the roos from eating, the grass while it's growing.
Okay, no, there's not specifically an animal like a kangaroo in the Serengeti. We're fortunate in that, we're unique in that, as you know. However, there are a lot of other wildlife. So, in a sense, the interesting component of this, what they've found in like that property that was managing in Zimbabwe, the herd that they move there is cattle, it's goats, there's some pigs in there, some donkeys, and there's a couple of elephants that have come in and worked out that the feed inside is a lot better than the feed outside. So that's the herd that they manage on a daily basis. Okay, what they find there, and it's the similar sort of thing they find in the US, is that all the animals, they come through and then about 3 to 4 days later you've got everything in one mob following that mob. Because so, in a sense, it's a little bit greeny sensitive, but in terms of managing the roo population, if you're moving the herd, what are the roos looking for? They're looking for the fresh pick. Where's the fresh pick? 3 to 5 days behind the herd. So in terms of managing that process, no, they're there, but at least they start to follow the thing. So, yeah.
Thanks. And my second question, I don't know, probably directed to all of them, but I'm here partly as a regional councillor, and our economic development officer is always telling us we've got to, be aware of this carbon trading debate and be in at the forefront of it all and everything. Could you identify opportunities for local government for me, please?
Okay, gentlemen, who'd like to start us off with that? Opportunities for local government. Bob, you had something in your description in here about working with local government?
Yeah, it's a warrior.
I'm sure it qualifies well though to speak about it.
Yeah, I think there are opportunities here, but we've got to be quite clear that the carbon trading debate, as it currently stands, is in limbo, in the sense of there are some voluntary markets that exist overseas, particularly in the States, where you can trade in carbon, but the value of the carbon in the agricultural sector or the land use sector is still undervalued because it is a voluntary market. In Australia, there is nothing that enables you to trade in carbon at this point in time. I think that it will come fairly quickly, but it's probably a couple of years away at this stage. Most of the states have draft legislation associated with carbon trading of some form, but they can't get some federal consensus on it. To be more specific in answering your question, I think the issue is that many councils are large landowners, and there is an opportunity to have multiple uses of the landscapes of which they own. So in that sense, they can grow trees, if you like, which may be native, that sequester carbon, improve the biota and the biodiversity within the region, at the same time improving livability for those that are in the urban environments that wish to exploit that. So I think you've got to look at multiple land use here, but if it's grown strategically, then the use of natural timbers will enhance the biodiversity and get multiple outcomes for the council, but at the same time be able to be accounted for carbon trading when it comes onto the thing. But at this stage, as of today, there would be nothing that you could trade in that's immediate. But again, similar opportunities exist with any landowner where it exists in reasonably large tracts of land. Does that help?
Tony, is there something you would have to... oh, sorry, Alan. Please.
Steve.
Oh, sorry.
A couple of other things that council
Thank you.
can consider is waste management, and a lot of councils already taken a lot of steps to actually minimise emissions from their waste. And the other big cost for councils, particularly regional councils, is fuel costs and fuel use and fuel costs. And you can expect fuel costs to go up greatly under any scheme. So managing those fuel use while still providing services in regional areas is going to be a challenge.
Thanks, Steve. Tony?
I suppose just in terms of, Bob partly answered your question, so just getting clear on what the question was it how can councils make money from carbon trading, or is it what role can local government play in climate change? Okay. In terms of what money they can make from carbon trading, I would expect bugger all. Really, because while they might be a large landholder, they have a lot of other competing interests as to what they have to do with their land. Okay, so it's mainly parks, gardens, landscaping type activities. So you have a maintenance obligation. I would expect that it will be what money can you save, and that's probably where Steve was talking about in terms of cutting fuel costs and trying to do things there. In terms of what role can local government play, I think supporting a forum like this, you're actively involved in. There are a lot of local governments, so it's basically just as serving the community in that role and raising awareness.
Thanks. Sorry, I had misread the question, thought it was very much targeted towards the carbon issue, but the energy efficiencies, the waste management, the restructuring of public buildings in the sense of energy use, the linking of solar cells to air conditioners through to providing, I suppose, infrastructure that's appropriately placed and able to manage the risks of the variability that likes to come, water use efficiency, native gardens in their parks, or native plants in their parks. All of those issues is quite an extensive amount. The LGAQ have a published report which, sorry to sound a bit delusionary here, but I'd written for them after doing a series of workshops on risk and exposure and vulnerability of councils up the eastern seaboard. So if you go to the LGAQ website, there is an issue of all the identified risks and exposures of local councils, what they saw as their risks and what they could do about it. And if you have any trouble with that, just give us a shout and I'll send you something out.